And welcome to another edition of the Journey to Freedom podcast. And I'm just so excited about doing this podcast as it's something different than, what I'm used to, all the things that I do and the people that I interview. This one just kind of takes heart a little bit more than some of the other ones do, because we're really thinking about, what does it mean when we're trying to achieve freedom, and all the things that have happened in our past. And when we think of folks of color, we think of African Americans and, the journey that they've had, just embarking on all the different things. And so, as we move into 2024 is where we're at now, and all the opportunities that are available, really wanted to kind of talk about those 5 pillars, one being trust, and the other one being identity and faith and health and finances, and things that our culture sometimes has us not really think about, has us not really doing a lot with, because we, have these, whether it's trauma or whether it's, just how our culture operates and how we talk to each other in the inner circles and the associations that we have. And so the goal of this podcast is to bring on folks that have been successful in this space, folks that have been able to, whether it's to be a part of society and still be able to grow, or just overcome some of those obstacles that we were taught as kids. And so today, as you can see, the last name is the same. And I've brought my cousin on, not just because he's my cousin, because I love him for that. And I love the times that we've been able to interact throughout our lives, but because he's been able to achieve some great success. There was a time where he was part of what was the #1 morning show in the entire country. Chris, and I know there's some accolades. I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself and, some of the things that you've been able to do. I know there's some Hall of Fames that are involved, but if you can begin just kind of sharing a little bit about your journey and your story and how you ended up where you're at now today.
Well, it started when I was born.
I love it. All right.
And about the age of 14, I really wanted to be on the radio. And back in those days, you had to get an FCC license to be on the radio. And I had my dad, your Uncle Bill, take me to the radio station that I liked to listen to growing up in Memphis, Tennessee. And the first thing they asked me, I was just 14 years old, and they said, "Hey, I just want to see a tour of the station." And they said, "Can you read a script? Can you do a commercial for us?" And I said, "Sure." So I did a promo for them. And I told them I really want to be on the radio. And they said, "You have to get the FCC license. When you get FCC license, you have to know ship to shore. You have to know weather. You have to know all these different things you wouldn't even think just for radio as a DJ or a sports announcer. And you have to make a 90 or better." And I was fortunate enough to do all of that. I get on the radio when I was in high school. I was on the radio when I was in college and tested out of the broadcasting classes. The radio, I never took radio and TV broadcasting. I took journalism. So I got a degree in journalism, University of Oklahoma. While I was there, I was on the radio, working my way through college. And I also had an internship at the television station there. When I graduated from college, I thought I was going to go right back to Memphis. That was my game plan. Go back to Memphis and pick up where I left off, and then go to LA or New York and be a DJ. That was the game plan. And I go to Memphis because I was hired to be the morning drive DJ. And the program director told me, "Hey, our national program director wants me to hire some guy from Boston. So we're at a stalemate because I want you. You're from Memphis. He's not even from this area. But of course, you're only 21 years old. So, we just wait it out. It'll fall into place." So I'm waiting in Memphis for like a week. And I was like, what if the national guy wins out of the local program director? So I started saying, what am I going to do? Well, I knew a promotions guy who was doing concert promotions in Dallas, out of Dallas. He did them all over the country. And he used to ask me to do his radio commercials. He would always tell me, "You could always be in Oklahoma, but you're too big for Oklahoma." And I said, "Well, I'm just at school in Oklahoma. I'm going to be back in Memphis. I'm going to go to LA. He said, "I like your plan." He said, "You just are better than Oklahoma." So he used to have me do all of his commercials that he used all over the country. And so he was based out of Dallas. I had never lived in Texas, only went to Dallas to go to Texas, Oklahoma games, because when I was in college, that's what you do. And he said, let me take your tape to about 5 stations and highly recommend you. First station I went to, they asked me, and say, hey, we see on your resume you do sports. I said, well, yeah, I have, but that's not what I'm looking at. DJ.
DJ. I
And
love
they
it.
said, well, we got this new basketball team called the Dallas Mavericks, and you got the Dallas Cowboys, you got SMU, TCU. We're going to, really let you do everything to cover all these sporting events if and I'm like, nope, you're a music station. I'm not interested. And they were trying to sway me. And I told them, I said, okay, the only way I'll do this is if you sincerely look at me if a DJ position opens up. Because I knew Dallas was a top 5 market. And I was like, okay, if I could at least work here and I'll still be looking around to a DJ position opens up. And this is why I tell people who are trying to get into broadcasting, you do not turn down opportunities. You recognize opportunities. There's no such thing as luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I was prepared for the opportunity. And I said, okay, I'll do this. And I found out that I enjoyed covering all these big sporting events. And since it was a music station, I still went to all the concerts free, was backstage, still met all the recording artists, all the big name groups and singers and entertainers, because guess what? Movies and television, all those different entertainers would come to the radio station. So I still had the best of both worlds. And lo and behold, I actually enjoyed covering 28 Super Bowls, 21 NBA Finals, 13 Final Fours, 8 World Series, 5 baseball All-Star games. I mean, yeah, 5, the Pro Bowl, 8 baseball All-Star games, the Pro Bowl, 5 Pro Bowls, Stanley Cup, 2 Stanley Cup Finals, the Olympics, 2 Olympics, the World Cup, Dallas Cowboys home and road games for 30 years, Dallas Mavericks road and home games for 8 years, won an Emmy Award on ABC affiliate Channel 8 down here, did the Dallas Mavericks for Fox Sports Southwest. So they put me in the Texas Radio Hall of Fame, the Texas Black Sports Hall of Fame, and then last year they put me in the Texas Boxing Hall of Fame because I've covered all the biggest fights in the world since 1980. And I've had a career that's been remarkable, and it's been a blessing. I do not take it for granted. And I've traveled all over the world because of sports, but I've also had my fingers on top of things in the world of entertainment as well.
That's so amazing, and I can remember watching the Michael Jordan special on Netflix, and seeing your face there, and so knowing that you just been
The Last Dance.
The Last Dance. What a and
I was there for all of his championships.
Oh my gosh! And I'm sure you met him and talked to him
lots of
times with him, and
yeah, I can say that he and I have a friendship. I'm not gonna say we're best friends, but he's, hey, Chris, what's up, man?
He knows your name. And so, one of the things that we're talking about in this program or this initiative, and it's basically it's a hyper intentional, what I would say mindset initiative where we're really trying to look at what drives, pretty much African-American men, whether to succeed, whether to be stuck, or whether to just kind of go backwards. And I know identity is a big part of it. What would you say kind of shaped, or what are the things that shaped your identity that allowed you to move forward in the way that you have compared to where other folks end up getting stuck?
Well, you have to have the correct mindset, and the mindset has to be that you can accomplish things. You can't live your life as a victim. My parents have always told me that you can do anything you want to do. I've told my kids that you have the power. It's no different than the Spider-Man movies. What do they say? With ultimate power comes great responsibility, right? With great power comes great responsibility. And I've always told my kids, and I've told kids when I speak at schools, not just kids that are young, but even collegiate kids and just anybody who's trying to get started. I always tell them that you have the power to let somebody, as my grandma used to put it, steal your joy. You have the power to determine your life course. Your life is full of twists and turns. Nobody's journey is the same. But guess what? You can influence your life more than someone else can if you don't allow the bad people to have domination over your life. So in all seriousness, it's about, do you feel like you can do something? There are people all over the world, and they have different opportunities. And if they have the mindset of, I can get something done, they usually get it done. If they have the woe is me complex, it's not going to happen. Michael Jordan used to say, you don't make the shots you don't take. And he also used to talk about how he's hit a lot of game-winning shots, but he's also missed them too. But he didn't quit when he missed the game-winning shot. He just worked harder at it. And instead of missing that shot, he took a better shot, or he dunked on your pumpkin head.
There we go. There we go. I love it. And so when we think about, a big word, over the last 4 or 5 years is this systemic racism, and, people being able to move forward, because they can't, because of all the roadblocks that are in the way. And I don't want to negate that there aren't any roadblocks, and there isn't, tough things that people have to go through. But being in entertainment, and that's one of those I guess, professions that people eat each other up and throw each other out and spit each other out all the time. What is it that you think, with mindset and everything else, there had to be people that were trying to do some of the same things that you were doing, achieve at the scale that you were achieving at, and stop for whatever reason, or didn't make it forward, or gave up. What are some of those things you think that happened to them that didn't allow them to move forward where you were able to thrive?
To navigate. It's all about navigation.
Okay.
Because everybody has challenges.
Okay.
When the challenge didn't make sense, it would beat some people down. And when I say it didn't make sense, if somebody's telling you you can't do something because it has nothing to do with who you are, but it turns out they have a preconceived notion of what you are. Okay. You have to be able to rise over those obstacles, or else you let those obstacles beat you down. And again, there are certain situations where you might feel like you can't overcome those obstacles, but guess what? There are things in place that will not allow you to do that. And those things are called systemic. You have to be aware of what they are, not naive to it. And you have to figure out how you can negotiate your way through it, because other than that, it will beat you down.
Gotcha. So yeah. So
you gotta know what the challenges are. You can't be naive. You can't say, oh, this happens to everybody. It doesn't happen to everybody. But then you got to ask, why does it happen to certain people? Because those people who may be in power don't understand the power that they have. And their power that they have is they have a fear of other. Mm-hmm. The fear of other is they have a fear of something that they don't understand. So they have more comfort in something that they're familiar with. You either have to let them allow to become comfortable with you, or you have to show them that you're not going to allow them to dictate your satisfaction, your happiness, your route. And it's no different in the world of sports. You might have a coach that preconceives, that thinks that you can't run fast just by looking at you. Wait a minute, what do you mean I can't run fast? You have to show them that you can. And then guess what? Maybe all of a sudden they realize, well, okay, I think I have an opportunity to win, and my team can win because I'm allowing Brian to run on this team. Where I saw him walk into the gym and I thought, okay, he had a slight gut, he can't run. Or I didn't think he could jump. Or I didn't think, whatever it is. Those are called preconceived notions. And those are things that's just life. That's human life. But guess what? It's systemic when those things are in place and you can't overcome them the way most people do. And that's just a fact. Those things are in place in different societies. And different societies have different people of different colors who are holding the other people back. History is written by the winners. Always know that. History is written by the winners, those who conquer the world. And no matter what years it was, years ago, or even today, they destroy the history of those they conquer. Otherwise, they cannot control those human beings. Mm-hmm. So you got to realize they put systems in place to control the masses.
Wow. I love that what you said. History is won by the winners, right?
It's written, not won, but written by the winners. It's a fact. Oh, and the first thing they do is destroy the libraries. And it doesn't matter what race of people. It doesn't matter if the race is all the same. It's whoever conquers the other controls that other by destroying their history. How else would they convince them that their way is the better way?
Oh, man. Well, you think about you know when I think about sports teams and sports that have won, when you think about history, if I were to try to go back and name the losers of each of the last 5 Super Bowls, it would be super hard for me to do. I can easily do the winners, right? Because that's what we gravitate toward. That's what we think. One of the things I'd love to ask you, like my belief.
I'll give you one,
Okay.
not to interrupt you, but you brought up this comparison of Super Bowls. There's a team called the Buffalo Bills, and people who don't know their history perceive them as being losers.
Okay.
They're not losers.
No.
They won the AFC Championship 4 straight times. They're the only team in history to go to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. Their first Super Bowl was lost on a field goal that went wide right. I'm only bringing this up because just last week, Kansas City Chiefs beat the Buffalo Bills, and it's heartbreaking for that community. A lot of people cried at that game, and it's understandable so, because that's some of the luck they've had to deal with. But unfortunately, there's a narrative that they're losers, and they're not. You don't go, and they have several players from those 4 consecutive Super Bowl teams that are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They're not losers because they didn't win the ultimate prize. You follow where I'm going with this? Yeah. It takes a lot of character to go to 4 consecutive Super Bowls. It wasn't like they were blown out, but that narrative changes, and they're perceived more like the Atlanta Braves had they won 1 Super Bowl. The Atlanta Braves went to a lot of Atlanta Braves went to a lot of World Series in the 1990s. I went to all of them. They won 1 World Series. If they had lost every single World Series, would they be considered losers?
No, they were in the World Series, right?
They were successful to various degrees. But again, what's so wild is those same teams that the Buffalo Bills competed against, not the Super Bowl champions. I'm talking about the other teams in those years. They lost more games than the Buffalo Bills. Those are the real losers. But because the Buffalo Bills didn't reach the ultimate goal, or win the ultimate goal, they made it to those 4 Super Bowls. There's a narrative that they were losers. Yeah. It's all in the eyes of the beholder.
And as your mindset and how you perceive yourself. And I think back to the Minnesota Vikings when I was a kid, and how many times did they go to the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
We used to say in track, we used to say second place was the first loser. Like, well, who's the silver medalist? But the ability to get to the Olympics and then to even be in the position to get a silver medal or a bronze medal.
You just said it best. How many athletes are Olympians? There's a lot, and it's great to be an Olympian, right? It's no not being an Olympian, but if you went to the Olympics and you didn't win the gold medal, you're not a loser. You're still an Olympian.
Yeah, absolutely.
But guess what? There are people who look at it like, okay, you didn't win the gold medal. You sucked.
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
No.
I made the Olympics and you didn't. You the one that sucked.
You watch me on TV, right? You watch me sitting in your living room while I was out there enjoying the world.
So perception can be some people's realities. And again, history is written by the winners. Always realize that. But also, you also realize that when you know what you can do and you know who you are, that's what determines whether you overcome certain things, certain obstacles that may be in front of you.
Yeah. One of the things that I look at too is, sometimes I see how much we glorify other people's success as if we want to put it on ourselves. We don't have enough confidence or belief in ourselves. So we latch on to somebody else and we say, we won today. I think of all the people that, now we're Detroit Lions fans and, we win and we won the game. Well, the folks that are playing on the field, they don't know you. They haven't heard of you. They probably never will. You're wearing their name on your back. They're having the time of their life. And then we decide to live our lives through them because we're not willing or taking the courage enough to do the things necessary. And then we can still feel really good about ourselves. Which brings me to this question of associations. And my belief is we are who we associate with. We are who that ring of people, whether it's our 5 closest people or just the ring of 30 or 40 people that are around us that we spend our time with. And a lot of what I think holds folks back is those associations. I've often said that, you go to the barbershop, you probably shouldn't spend more than 30 to 40 minutes at a barbershop, because then you're now around those associations that if you're there all day, you know, it reminds me of the Coming to America, right? What is it? Velvet? You know, what do you talk about all day and arguing over whether Cassius Clay was the best, you know, boxer, or, you know, or no, Muhammad Ali? What are those things? How have you shaped your associations over time that have allowed you to continue in a space where when opportunity comes, right? Because there's no luck, right? It's preparedness and opportunity come together. That's what luck is. How have you been able to manage that?
Well, you try your best not to be the smartest person in the room. If you are around people who are smarter than you, if you are able to break down information, what other people bring to the table, that's how you grow. You cannot be the smartest one everywhere you go. How do you learn? You always want to grow and you always want to learn. And ironically, you mentioned the barbershop, and I was thinking coming to America too, but ironically, that's how I actually learned about sports, was going to the barbershop and watching Muhammad Ali on the television, the wide world of sports. But here's what happens. It's not, you were putting in, this is not wrongly, you put in the perception, you putting in the area of, okay, you can't spend your whole life just talking sports. Unfortunately, for some people, they're not paid to talk sports. I'm paid to talk sports. So I was able to turn that into something. But that doesn't mean that's the wrong place to be. You just cannot, unless that's what you wind up doing, you cannot only do that. You gotta have backup plans. I always tell this to athletes when I speak to their schools or whatever. You might have a coach that might not like you, you might tear up a knee. You got to be prepared for other things. You got to have the insurance policy, and that's your education. There's power in knowledge. You cannot be the person that says not being smart is not cool. The cool people, the people who are smart, don't have to flash it. You just know that you're smart, and then you share that knowledge with others. But you don't like act like you're the smartest guy, because there's always somebody that you don't know that's smarter than you. But you should always try your best to seek more knowledge. And it depends on even what the area of expertise is. There are some people who care nothing about technology. And guess what? You should know something about it nowadays, because otherwise you're going to be deceived by bots, by misinformation, disinformation, AI that's not real, fake. They call it there's videos that are like have a Tom Cruise in it, and it's not there. Deep fakes. So again, there are people who are a little bit older. They don't know anything about technology, so they have their grandkids, their tech support. There are kids who are younger, and I always kid them too, because they may know a lot about technology, but they can't write in cursive. They don't know what the teachers.
They don't teach that anymore.
You might know how it is, but you don't know how to write in cursive. You can't even read it in cursive. So my whole thing is challenge them to try to know more. And that's the whole point. You can't be deceived, or as I put it, depending on where I'm speaking, you can't get played if you're smarter than the other guy. Whether it's street smarts or book smart, you can't get played if you're smart. And the ones that are dumb are the ones that try to flex, the ones that try to act like they know it all. You know what you know, but you never act like you know it all, because there's always somebody that knows something more than you, and they're playing you. And there's some people who are smart enough to just listen. And you can't learn anything if you never listen.
Ooh, that's a huge one right there. And there's so many people. When I think of, folks that are successful, I think of this pursuit of excellence. It's not just enough to have a craft. It's how do you master the craft? And as you started talking about education and things you did,
yes.
What are some of the things over time? I mean, you've been doing this a long time now. Are there still times when you're trying to get better? Are there still
always, or you be obsolete? The only reason I've had this career for all these years, literally, I've never not been on the radio since 1973. Since 1973, I have never not been on the radio. How is this done? Because I always try to be better. Media is social media is one thing. Traditional media is another thing. But one thing you have to be prepared for is a changing landscape. that it's flux. You've got to be prepared for what is Instagram. You got to be prepared, or otherwise you'll be a newspaper that nobody picks up off the lawn anymore. You've got to be prepared when people say, oh, I want to get into radio. Are you sure? Radio is in a evolution. Even television is not the same. It's streaming now. I mean, there's different ways people, like what you're doing right now is a podcast, but your podcast actually has a video along with it. There are people right now that are consuming the information in bubbles, and that's all they know. The most naive thing you could do is get your information from one source. There are some people who are more comfortable with that one source. They may only know anything about sports. That's all they know. There are some people that's all they know is about music. There are some people that all they know is about history, or all they know is politics, or all they know is church, or you have to be aware of everything. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything, but you have to be aware, because guess what? I could talk about food and you might not know anything about the Food Network.
That's so true.
I could be talking about professional wrestling. You don't know who The Rock is. I could be talking about social media influencers. You have no idea who I'm talking about, because that's not the platform that you get your information from. And you have to have more than one bubble, or else guess what? You could be tricked. You could be duped. You could be all the things that make people go down the wrong path, because that's all you consume.
Yeah, and you just, with all the information's out there, it's having ways to discern it. And you start thinking about, even like news channels are tailored to certain audiences.
Exactly.
Only watch,
and you've got to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And again, they're really slick by calling something news when it's not news at all.
And making it news, making it and turning in the direction.
That is called disinformation, and it's been on for years. And way back once upon a time when all they had were newspapers or books or just people standing on street corners shouting out information, it was their version of that information. Did you know that there were people who thought Columbus discovered America? Well, how can he discover America if there were already people there? Then you find out more information, and guess what? There are people from Greenland and the Vikings. They got to North America before Columbus did. And Columbus didn't even know he was in North America. He thought he was in India, which is why he called Native Americans Indians. Yeah. I could go on and on and on.
Oh yeah, there's so much disinformation out there. Is there any like pivotal points in your career that you could pinpoint to say this is a point or a crossroads that I came to? This is a decision I made, and this is what springboarded me to greater things. Or has it just been just the grind of doing it over and over and over, the many years, and being willing to do things like getting up at 3:30 in the morning to do a show? I remember those days when you were, all night, long, and having to go to bed early and all, paying those kind of dues. What are some of those pivotal things that you could say made the difference?
What made the difference for me is I enjoyed a challenge. And what challenged me, and because you're a former athlete, you're competitive, where people said you couldn't do it, that I couldn't do it. When I went to University of Oklahoma, my friends had no idea I was already on the radio in Memphis. When I mentioned I wanted to be on the radio at the campus station, I had already been on the radio in a regular city radio station. Oh, you can't do that. Why can't I? Oh, well, you're just a freshman. I'm like, you don't know anything about me. And then as I worked at a music station in Dallas, and I'm covering Super Bowls, World Series, Final Fours, there are people that perceived that I wasn't at a real news station. And yet I was doing much more than they were. Okay. It was almost like I was a hidden figure. And you mentioned Michael Jordan. I had stellar relationships with sports figures because guess what? I wasn't an old fogey writer who stereotyped athletes. And I'm not talking about black ones. I'm talking about any athletes or coaches as being this way, that the people that I interviewed, and you would see it. And again, I've got pictures of me with some of the greatest sports figures of all time. And I'm talking about coaches, players, whatever. Why? Because I developed a rapport with them. And when I would come back to Dallas, my quote unquote peers, the ones that were at quote unquote news stations or writing for newspapers. They didn't think what I was doing was real, but I was doing even more than they were.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? I'm in the Texas Radio Hall of Fame and they're not.
Yeah. Oh my God.
In other words, the body of work that was not, I started doing a sports talk show on a different radio station, a sports talk station, because there were people who didn't know I existed. They all of a sudden saw me on TV. I got people to this day that recognize me from the TV work that I was doing. I got people who recognize me in Dallas as MC for the Dallas Mavericks. They have no idea I'm on the radio or I've been on the radio. I have people who listen to me on a sports talk station, never heard of me on the music station that I was on, K104. The #1, we won every award imaginable. You mentioned the #1 show in the country. They never heard it. There are people who used to listen to me only on that. Ask me, what am I doing today? I'm still on the radio on a sports talk station. They don't listen. So that goes back to the information bubbles. Am I mad at them? No. I just know that they're limited in what they listen to. And again, guess who won? I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, I'm in 3 different Hall of Fames. I'm why, but guess what? That doesn't matter to some people because they don't listen to sports. They care less about sports. And even the Texas Radio Hall of Fame, I'm a sports figure, which is also a small fragment. I'm very honored because guess what? State of Texas is a large state. And it's not just Houston and Dallas. This is all over the state of Texas. Amarillo, El Paso. I can name little bitty towns. And guess what? I'm in the Texas Radio Hall of Fame, where they have general managers, disc jockeys, all kinds of formats. But I made it. And I have never not been on the radio. And you could have told me growing up in Memphis that I would wind up in Texas, but I never gave up. And I never quit. And I looked at the challenge of, guess what? You can't tell me I can't succeed at what I do.
I love, you can't tell me I can't succeed at what I do.
I got to run though.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I know we got a hard stop and, we will continue this conversation and I will have you back on again. And I just appreciate you taking the time to really just, explain, hey, what does it take to be successful? And you have the opportunity to be successful. And so, like I say, everybody else, you can do this. You deserve this. Find other people, associations that can help you do that. And so, Chris,
I got to go on the radio right now. I got to go.
A little bit. We will talk with you soon. Have a great night.